Hello guys, this is Prem and welcome to Python Learning Series. In this lecture, we're going to learn about Python tuples. So tuples are generally Python's most versatile and useful data type, and you will find them in virtually every Python program. So a tuple is an immutable sequence of Python objects. That means it cannot be changed. In list, we can update the objects or we can remove items, we can append items, we can overwrite the items, but in lists, in tuples, we cannot really do that. So let's go further and talk about how do we define it. So each item in the tuple are separated by commas and enclosed by parentheses. As you can see in the example, I have separated by commas for each and every value and enclosed by parentheses. So if you really don't want to enclose by parentheses, you can do like that too. So in this lecture, we're gonna learn about what are tuples and how do we define it. We already learned about it, and then we'll learn about how do we create it. Then we'll learn about accessing elements in our tuple. Then we'll learn about operations on tuples that we can do and built-in functions that we can perform and converting list into tuples, and then we will learn about difference between list and tuples. So let's take our first topic, which is accessing items in our tuple. So we can access the items in the tuple by indexing the items. Let's say I have a tuple of colors, say blue, orange, green and yellow. So this is a syntax. So as you can see in the example, tuple of colors is equals to blue, orange, green and yellow. As you can see, I have enclosed by parentheses and separated by commas. So interesting point is index counting starts from 0. So the object 1, like object 1, which is blue in this case, is nothing but index 0. So when we print tuple of color of 0, so 0 is an index number, that will return the value of blue. Tuple of color, so when we print tuple of colors of 1, it will print orange. When we print tuple of colors 2, it will print green. So let's go further and talk about what are the operations that we can perform, what are the operations that we can do in tuples. So first operation is concatenate, second we can multiply, then we can nest. So let's take our first example, which is concatenation. So concatenation is nothing but addition of two tuples. So tube 1 is our first tuple and tube 2 is our second tuple. So in tube 1 we got odd numbers and in tube 2 we got even numbers. So tube 3 is nothing but addition or nothing but a concatenation between tube 1 and tube 2. So when we print tube 3, it will print as 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9 and 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. So let's go further and talk about the example of multiplication. So tube 1 is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and tube 2 is equals to tube 1 into 3. That means when we print tube 2, it will print tube 1 3 times. In this case, tube 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it will print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3 times. As you can see in the output, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3 times. So let's take an example of nesting. So nesting is nothing but a tuple within a tuple, a list within a list. So as you can see in the example, tube 1 is equals to, so tube 1 is a tuple, and in this tuple we got 3 items or 3 tuples. First is 2, 1, 2, 3, second is 2, 4, 10 and third is green and blue. So when you print tube 1, it will give an output as this. So let's say I want to access only green and blue. I don't want 1, 2, 3 and 2, 4, 10 to be accessed. So how do we do that? For that we will print tube 1 of 2. So in this case 2 is an index and we will print when we will print this syntax, it will give green and blue. Let's do further and talk about built-in functions that we can perform with tuples. So our first function is len function. and our second is max function, and our third is min function, and our fourth is sum function. So what length function do? So it will just give us the length of our tuple, and sum function will give us the sum of our tuple, and our max function, it will give us that number which is greatest in our tuple, and min function will give us that number which is smallest in our tuple. So let's take an example for each and every function. So our first example is length function. So tube1 is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and length of tube1 will give us the length of tube1, which is 5 in this case. And our next example is max function. So tube1 is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 66, and max of tube1 will gives us the greatest number in our tube, which is 66. And our next example is min function. So tube1 is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 66, and min of tube1 will gives us the minimum number in our tuple, which is 1. And our last example is sum function. So tube1 is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and tube2 is equals to sum of tube1. That means sum of tube1 gives us the sum of tube1, which is 15, right? 5 plus 1 6, 6 plus 4 10, and 10 plus 5 15, right? Let's go further and talk about converting lists into tuples. So I have created a list of countries, let's say Hong Kong, Canada, Bangkok, and Singapore. So tuple1 is equals to tuple of list of countries. So list of countries is a variable and tuple is a keyword. And then and in tuple function we have to enter that variable of the list to be converted into a tuple. So in this case the variable is list of country, and when we print tuple1 it will give an output as Hong Kong, Canada, Bangkok, and Singapore. As you can see in the example, it has enclosed by small brackets or parentheses and separated by commas, and the form of items is string. That's why it has print single quotes for each and every value. So let's go to Spider and do some practical programming. So in Spider we learn how to concatenate of two tuples. We'll learn how to multiplication of tuple. We'll learn nesting and different type of functions. So let's take our first topic, which is concatenation of two tuples. So I'm just making a tuple. I'm just creating a tuple. Let's say tube1 is equals to small brackets. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm just creating another tuple. Let's say tube2 is equals to let's say 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, indentation. Yeah. So I'm just making another variable, and in this variable I'm just assigning tube1 plus tube2. So when we print tube3, it will give us an output as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So as you can see, when tube3 is printed, so what is tube3? Tube3 is nothing but the addition of tube1 plus tube2. So when we print tube3, it will give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is tube1, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is tube2. So it has added two tuples at the same time, right? So let's do further and talk about multiplication of tuple. So I'm just creating tup1 is equals to, in small brackets, let's say Python. So in Python. So I just want to print Python 5 times. So how do I do that? For that, I'm just creating a variable tup2 is equals to tup1 into 5. So it will print Python 5 times. So let's print tup2. So when print, as you can see, it has printed Python 5 times, right? So let's talk about nesting. So what is nesting? So nesting is nothing but a tuple within a tuple. So I'm just creating a tuple. Let's say tup1 is equals to, in small brackets, so it's a tuple, and in this tuple I got another tuple. Let's say 1, 2 and 3, and in this tuple we got another tuple, say 4, 5 and 6, and in this tuple we got another tuple, let's say 7, 8 and 9. For accessing items, let's say I want to access 789, so I want to access 789. So how do I do that? So for that we will print tup1, and in square brackets we have to enter the index number of the particular item that we want to access. So in this case it's present in index 2. So when we print that, it will print 7, 8 and 9. Let's say I want to access 8 in 789 tuple. So how do I do that? So for that we'll print another in square brackets and we'll enter the index number of 8. So what is the index number of 8? It's 1. So when we print it, it will give 8 as an output. Let's say I want to access 3 in I want to access 3 in my tuple. So for that we have to print in square brackets. So what is the um, what is the index number of this tuple? It's 0, right? So 0, and in here we have to enter another square bracket, and in this case the index number of 3 is 2. So when we print, it will give 3 as an output. So let's go further and talk about different type of functions. So our first function is len function. So what len function do? It will just give us an output as a length, right? So let's say I have a tuple, say tuple tupl is equals to, in small brackets, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 33, 12, 21, 12, 56, 77, 89, 98 and say 90, 67. Okay, so for calculating the length, for that the syntax is tup2 is equals to, so tup2 is a variable and tup2 is equals to len, sorry, len of tuple. So when we print, so we have to print it too, print tup2, it will print 14. That means there are 14 characters in our tuple. So let's say I have another tuple, let's say tupl2 is equals to, say Hong Kong, um, USA, say Canada, say India. Okay, so for calculating the length of tuple 2, we have to just replace tupl by tupl2. So then will get an output as 4. That means there are only 4 characters, there are only 4 items in our tuple. So let's do further and talk about sum function. So what sum function do? It will just enter the sum. It will just return the sum value of all our characters, of all our numbers, right? So I'm just copying this and paste it here. Okay, so I just want to calculate the number, I just want to calculate the sum of all these numbers, all these items. So how do I do that? So for that, syntax is tup2 is equals to sum in small brackets. We have to enter the variable, and when we print tup2, it will print as 558. That means the sum of 1 2 3 4 5 33 21 12 56 77 and on so on is until 67 is 558. Okay, so let's read this, and let's take 3 5, let's say 3 5 7 9 1 2 4 7 90. Okay, and I just want to calculate the sum of this number. So how do I do that? For that, this is a syntax, and when we print it, it will print as 127. So what is 127? So 127 is nothing but a sum of all these items. Okay, so let's talk about max function. So what max function do? It will just give that number which is largest, which is greatest in our tuple. So let's say I have a tuple of, say I have a tuple 1 is equals to, in small brackets, say 56 78 12 34 50 65 78 and 90 and 102 and 102 and 12. So let's see 21. So for accessing it, so for accessing the max, the maximum number, for that the syntax is tup2 is equals to max of tuple 1. It's tuple 1. So when we print tup2, it will give an output as 112. That means 112 is the greatest number, 112 is the largest number in our tuple. Okay, so let's talk about min function. Okay, so what min function do? It will just give the output as it will give that number which is smallest in our tuple. Let's say tuple, so I'm just copying this and pasting here. So for accessing the minimum number, for that the syntax is, say tup2 is equals to min, and in min function as tuple 1. So when we print tup2, it's tup2, it will print 12. That means 12 is smallest number in our tuple. So our last topic is converting lists into tuples. It's very important topic. So for that, let's say I have a list. So lst is equals to, in square brackets, because we have to define the list by square brackets. Let's say Python say ml and n say no n. Okay, so I'm just want to convert these lists into a tuple. So for that, let's say tuple1 is equals to tuple. So tuple is a keyword, and in this keyword or in this function we have to enter that variable in which our list is assigned. So in this case the variable is lst, because we have to convert this variable into a tuple, right? So when we print to 1, it will print Python ml and n, but as you can see here, it has enclosed by small brackets. That means it has converted, so it is converted list into a tuple. Okay, so a quick recap, and in Spider we have learned how to concatenate, how to multiply, and the nesting, and we have learned the different type of functions like len function, sum function, max and min function, and converting lists into tuples. Okay, so our last topic is uh, difference between lists and tuples. So in left hand side we have lists, and in right hand side we have tuples. So our first base is mutability. So lists are mutable and tuples are immutable, right? Lists are mutable, lists can be changed, but tuples cannot be changed. So our second base is delete. Can we delete in list? Yes, we can, but we cannot in tuples. So our next base is append functions. So can we add in list? Yes, we can, but in tuples we cannot, because tuples are mutable and lists are mutable, right? So our fourth is memory consumption. Of course, lists consume more memory, and tuples consume lesser than lists. So our fifth is unexpected change. Can we change, or can we just update the items in list? Yes, we can, but we cannot in tuples. So our last is appropriate for. So why do we use list? So list used for deletion operation, like unexpected change operations, but in tuples are useful for read only operations, like accessing items or elements only. So thank you for watching, and in another video lecture we will learn about Python dictionaries. Until that, goodbye.